Printing your photos is one of the most rewarding parts of photography, making impressive gallery quality prints as we bring our pictures back into the physical world exactly where they belong. So today we're going to compare 3 Canon printers to help you get the right balance between size, cost and quality. I'm basically making the video I would have wanted to watch when I began my home printing journey about 7 years ago. So let's begin this shootout between the Canon Pro-200, Pro-300 and the Canon Pro-1000. Hi, I'm Adam and welcome back to First Man Photography. Now, for full disclosure, Canon are the sponsors of today's video, but they're all Canon printers, so the comparison is completely genuine and not influenced by Canon in any way. The Pro-200 here is on loan for this test, the Pro-300 is mine, and I bought the Pro-1000 with my own money about 3 years ago. So let's discuss some of the differences and then we'll fire them up and make some prints. Now the first and most obvious difference is the size, both of the prints they are capable of making, but also of the actual printer itself. The Pro-200 and the Pro-300 both print up to A3+, which is actually a really nice size. It's significantly bigger than A3, and once you mount a print of that size and put it in a frame, it becomes a very impressive piece of artwork. On the other hand, the Pro-1000 prints up to A2 in size, and when it comes to printing, I am on record as saying bigger is better. This is true for the prints themselves, and it is an seriously impressive size that will look great even in a very large room, but that comes with the inconvenience of the size of the machine itself. This thing is big and probably too big for many home offices, and it's also extremely heavy, so you're not going to want to be moving it around too often at all. The Pro-200 and the Pro-300 though are a much more sensible size, which would fit in almost any home office. But with all 3 printers, the paper feed trays open at the back, so there does need to be a bit of space between the back of the actual printer and your wall, so you can open them up and get the paper into it. Another nice additional feature is with all 3, you can set a custom size to feed in roll paper for your panoramas. The Pro-200 and 300 have a maximum length of just under 1 meter, and the Pro-1000 can go as long as 1.2 meters. Which just gets me excited every single time I do it. I'm going to be making another video about panoramas soon, and they just look absolutely brilliant when they're in print. So make sure you are subscribed and give that notification bell a gentle little caress. The next big difference is the ink each one uses. The Pro-200 uses a dye-based system called ChromaLife 100+, and according to Canon, if you store the prints properly, they're going to last over 100 years. The Pro-300 and the Pro-1000, however, both use pigment-based inks called Lucia Pro, which create gallery quality prints that will archive it for a very long time. The Pro-300 also uses the new matte black ink, and I found in a previous test that the matte blacks, or the blacks, are definitely more vivid and rich than with the Pro-1000. The Pro-300 has a 10 ink system and the Pro-1000 has 12, and they both also include the Chroma Optimizer, which eliminates bronzing, provides uniform glossiness, natural colours, and enhanced black density. The Pro-200 uses 8 inks and doesn't have the Chroma Optimizer, but we're going to print a glossy image on all 3 printers in a minute, and we'll see if this makes any significant difference. I'll put the size of the ink cartridges up on the screen, but we're dealing with the economies of scale here. Even though the Pro-1000 cartridges are more expensive than the other 2, the price per milliliter is actually the cheapest of the 3. Now, if it isn't obvious yet, these 3 printers all cover a different price point to suit different budgets. I'll put the price up on the screen for each as of today, but These will clearly change over time. So I'll also put a link down below where you can check the current price. Before you buy a printer, it is important to stress though that there is an ongoing cost of consumables in the form of ink and paper. Other artists who use paper and paints are totally accustomed to this, but I think for photographers, since the digital age, it's something we're not always quite used to. It's also hard to say how much it will cost you each month because it's entirely dependent on how much you print, but on Canon's website, it does give you an indication of how many prints you can get from each cartridge. And they also have the accounting software where you can calculate how much your print will cost before you make it. All three printers do expend ink to keep the nozzles clean as well, but if you use the printer regularly enough, this will be minimized. And if you're not using it as much, then you're not going to be using ink anyway. It also depends what you're going to do with your prints. I've said many times before that I think everyone should print their photos. It's amazing seeing your work come to life where you can hold it in your hands, and completing that photographic process in the physical world is extremely fulfilling. It will also, I think, make you a better photographer if you start thinking about making prints rather than taking photos. If you are considering selling your prints though, I've done a video on that before where I do a full breakdown of costs and the method I use to price my work. I think you'll find it really useful. Right, let's do some printing so we can really compare what these printers are capable of. We're going to print 3 images on each of the 3 printers. So we'll end up with 9 prints at the end. One image will be black and white so we can see how they all handle the blacks. One is going to be this woodland image, which has loads of detail and textures in it. We're going to print this one on a nice matte paper to see how that comes out. And then finally, we'll print this nice colourful sunset on a glossy paper, which always enhances the colours. And we can see what difference, if any, that Chroma Optimizer makes. We'll also do this one borderless, I think, which just looks great, which all 3 printers can do. And it just lets you maximise the use of your paper. Another thing that all 3 printers have in common is they all come with Canon's professional print and layout software. I actually think this is one of the best features of Canon printers because it just makes it so easy to use. You can open it up as a standalone or as a plugin from Lightroom, and then you can easily select the size you want, the layout you want, create custom sizes like the panoramas. You can use your ICC profiles, and then it will give you a preview of how it will look, and then you simply hit print. So it's taken me half a day to print all those and capture that footage, but it's always such a thrill getting your print on like that. A very enjoyable 4 to 5 hours indeed. But let's start with the glossy seascape, and these 3 all look very similar. It's difficult to see on camera, but the Chroma Optimizer does provide a more uniform glossiness and colour, I think. And because it's adding a coating to the surface, the whole image somehow just looks smoother. With the detail and textures though, to my eyes, I can't see any difference at all. The Pro-200 looks just as good as the other 2, and that holds up even when you look very closely and get your face right in the print. There are, however, some differences with the colour. The Pro-300 and Pro-1000 are almost identical, but the 2 extra inks the Pro-1000 has are blue and a second grey one. And I think for this image particularly, that has made a difference. If you look at the bottom of the image there is a slightly wider range of colours on the Pro-1000, which gives that the image sort of extra richness. It's very small margins, obviously, but sometimes I guess that matters. The Pro-200 version, despite the same paper and settings, has come out a bit more saturated with slightly less detail in the shadows as well. That's not to say it's bad though, it's just different, and I also wouldn't be surprised if many people actually prefer this one because the colour and the contrast appear punchier. Next up is the London Seascape. This was an interesting one actually because when I first printed it on the Pro-300, one of the black inks had run out, or nearly run out, and it came out with a sort of very heavy green tinge. This wouldn't happen on the Pro-1000 because the ink is fed to the print head through tubes. So even when the cartridge is empty, there's still a significant amount of ink left in the pipes. Unlike me though, if you replace your inks when the printer tells you to, you won't run into this issue on any of the printers. And once I replaced the cartridge on the Pro-300 and did a second attempt, it looked perfect. And apart from the size, almost identical to the Pro-1000 version. The Pro-200 version again showed a slight colour difference. I add a subtle blue tone to my black and white photographs, and this blue appeared more saturated on the Pro-200. Again, not worse, just different. And if this was my main printer, I'd quickly get used to this and just back the saturation off a bit when I'm editing the file. Again, the detail and texture looks just as good as the other two. And because we used matte paper, this time the chroma optimizer doesn't get used at all. And if, like many landscape photographers, you're only going to use matte paper, then that could be a factor for you. And then we have the woodland image with all that texture, and it's where the larger A2 print comes into its own because all those details are bigger and easier to appreciate. But otherwise, it's a similar story. The colour on the Pro-200 is a bit warmer and more saturated. But this is actually the first image I printed, and with no comparison at that point, I absolutely loved it. It's difficult to conclude which one is best because it totally depends on individual circumstances. If money and space is no object, then the Pro-1000 is the clear choice, but that doesn't apply to many people at all. The reason I went for the Pro-1000 was because I wanted to offer A2 prints for sale, and over time that has paid for itself. If I was just starting out though, I would go for the Pro-200. It's more budget friendly, and if this was the first proper photo printer that you've ever owned, you'll be absolutely blown away, and it produces lovely prints that I would still happily sell without hesitation. I kind of regret not printing my own photos earlier in my digital photography journey, and the Pro-200 would definitely have suited my circumstances back then. The chroma optimizer and the Lucia Pro ink and the extra inks does make a difference though, and if I was buying from scratch today, I would be looking at the Pro-300, struggling to decide whether that increase in quality is worth the increased cost. The truth is, they're all great though, and you won't be sorry whichever one you choose, but I also think it's worth reiterating that A3 Plus is a really lovely size. Anyway, I've got loads more videos on printing, how to do it, how to frame them, how to sell them, so check them out. Please give this video a like, check the links down below as well, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Bye.